The story opens with a visceral, inciting incident, disguised as a moment of complete unraveling, the sharp crack of a phone hitting marble. Elena Brooks sits paralyzed in the center of a bustling downtown cafe, her hands still suspended in mid-air where the device slipped from her trembling fingers, tears streaming down her professionally made-up face as conversations buzz around her oblivious presence. The introduction immediately establishes her impossible desperation, a ticking clock of 48 hours until her orphaned niece disappears into the foster system forever, contrasted sharply with the composed, watchful presence of the suited stranger 2 tables away who recognizes in her breaking point the exact moment that shattered his own world 2 years ago. Elena's hands are still shaking as she gathers her purse, the cafe suddenly too small, too bright, too full of people living normal lives. She needs air. She needs to think. She needs a miracle that doesn't exist. Ms. Brooks? The voice stops her at the door, deep, careful, belonging to the man from the corner booth. Up close, he's younger than she expected, maybe late 30s, with dark eyes that hold a particular kind of exhaustion she recognizes from her own mirror. I'm sorry, she manages. Do I know you? No. But I couldn't help overhearing your conversation. He extends a hand. Alexander King. The name means nothing to her fog of panic until he adds, I have a proposal that might sound insane, but I'm asking you to hear me out. Elena should walk away. Every instinct screams stranger danger, but something in his expression, grief layered beneath composure, keeps her rooted. I need a wife, he says simply. You need a husband. Tomorrow, if I understood correctly. The laugh that escapes her borders on hysterical. You're right. That does sound insane. I'm a single father. My son Marcus is 9. His mother died 2 years ago, and he's struggling. Alexander's voice doesn't waver, but his fingers tighten around the coffee cup he's still holding. I've been where you are, fighting to protect a child while drowning in grief. Strangers helped me when I had nothing left. Let me be that for you. You don't know me. You don't know Sophia. I know desperation when I see it. I know what it looks like when someone is out of options. His eyes meet hers with devastating clarity. I know what it feels like to make promises to the dying that seem impossible to keep. Elena's breath catches. How did he? My wife, he says quietly. I promised Victoria I'd take care of Marcus, that he'd never feel alone. But money can't fix everything. He needs, more than I know how to give him. So you want to marry a stranger? Elena's voice cracks. For 6 months. A year. 6 months. Long enough to satisfy your courts and establish guardianship for Sophia. Long enough for Marcus to have someone who understands maternal care. He pulls a business card from his pocket. Meet me tonight. 7 o'clock. My office address is on the card. Bring questions, bring doubts, bring a lawyer if you want. But come. Elena stares at the embossed card. Alexander King, CEO, King Ventures. Why would you do this? Because someone has to. He turns toward the door, then pauses. And because saving one child might help me figure out how to save my own. The King Ventures building towers over downtown like a monument to success, all glass and steel and the kind of wealth Elena has only glimpsed while coordinating events for clients who treat money like air. Alexander's penthouse office occupies the entire 40th floor. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes greets Elena at the elevator. Margaret Chen, Mr. King's attorney. Please, have a seat. The conference table could seat 20. Elena chooses a chair near the middle, feeling absurdly small. Alexander enters moments later, having traded his café casual for a tailored suit that probably costs more than Elena's monthly rent used to. Thank you for coming. He sits across from her, and Margaret opens a leather portfolio. Let's establish terms, Margaret begins, her tone professionally neutral. This arrangement will last 6 months from the date of marriage. Mr. King will provide housing in his primary residence, financial support including a household allowance, and all documentation necessary for your custody proceedings. Elena forces herself to focus. And what do I provide? A maternal presence for Marcus, Alexander says. Not replacement, never that. But someone who can help him navigate what he's lost. Someone who understands grief. I'm not a therapist. No. You're someone fighting for a child you love. That's what Marcus needs to see, that love is worth fighting for. Margaret slides a document across the table. Standard confidentiality clauses, financial arrangements, dissolution terms. Everything terminates after 6 months unless both parties agree to extend. Elena scans the pages, her event planning brain cataloging details. This says you'll cover Sophia's expenses. Education, medical, everything. She's about to be my stepdaughter, Alexander says. Even if temporarily. Why? The question bursts out before Elena can stop it. You could hire a nanny, a therapist, anyone. Why marry someone you don't know? Alexander is quiet for a long moment. Because Marcus needs to believe in love again. Not performance, not transactions. Real connection, even if it's temporary. His voice drops. And maybe I need to believe in it too. Their eyes meet across the expensive table, and Elena feels something shift, recognition, maybe, or understanding. When Margaret passes her a pen, their fingers brush. The contact is brief, electric, completely inappropriate for a business transaction. Which is exactly what this is, Elena reminds herself as she signs her name. Tomorrow morning, Alexander says. 9 o'clock at the courthouse. Elena nods, wondering if she's just made the smartest or stupidest decision of her life. The dress is simple, blue, because Sophia said blue was her mother's favorite color, and Elena needs all the blessings she can gather. She found it at a department store last night during the 2 hours Sophia stayed with Elena's neighbor, a kind woman who asked no questions when Elena returned with swollen eyes and a garment bag. Alexander waits on the courthouse steps, Marcus beside him. The boy is all sharp angles and careful posture, his suit perfectly pressed, his dark hair combed with precision that speaks of too much practice at looking composed. You came, Alexander says, and Elena hears the relief beneath his calm. I promised Sophia. She kneels before Marcus, meeting his guarded brown eyes. Hi. I'm Elena. I know. Dad told me. The boy's voice is careful, older than 9 should sound. You have a niece. Sophia. She's 7. She's scared and sad and she asks a million questions. Something flickers in Marcus's expression, not quite a smile, but close. I used to do that. Ask questions. Used to. I ran out of people who knew the answers. Elena's heart cracks cleanly in two. Before she can respond, a bailiff calls their names. The ceremony room is small, institutional, nothing like the weddings Elena has planned with their flowers and carefully curated emotions. Judge Harrison is efficient, bored even, reading the words like a script he's performed 1,000 times. When Alexander takes her hand to slide on the ring, Elena gasps. It's platinum, elegant, clearly antique. My grandmother's, he murmurs. For authenticity. I can't. You can. You're my wife now. The words should sound clinical. They don't. Do you, Elena Brooks, take this man? I do. The words come easier than expected. You may kiss the bride. Alexander's hand is warm against her cheek as he leans in. The kiss is brief, appropriate, designed for the legal record. But his lips are soft, and for half a second Elena forgets this is pretend. Congratulations, Judge Harrison says without inflection. Next. Outside, marriage license in hand, Elena catches Sophia staring at the ring. Marcus notices too. It was my grandma's, he tells Sophia solemnly. She died before I was born, but Dad says she was nice. Sophia considers this. My mom died last week. Was yours nice? Yeah, Marcus whispers. Really nice. The children stand together in their grief, and Elena meets Alexander's eyes over their heads. Whatever they've just done, there's no going back now. The King estate unfolds like something from a magazine Elena has coordinated shoots for but never imagined living in. Glass walls overlook manicured gardens. The foyer's marble floors reflect Sophia's odd face as she clutches Elena's hand hard enough to hurt. Welcome home, Alexander says, and the word feels like a lie they're all pretending to believe. Marcus steps forward, shoulders back like a soldier. I can show you around. If you want. His formality breaks Elena's heart. We'd like that very much. The tour is careful, practiced. This is the kitchen, Margot cooks, she's nice. This is the library, you can borrow anything. This is the gym, Dad uses it a lot. Marcus's voice never wavers, never reveals emotion beyond polite hospitality. Until they reach the second-floor hallway, where he pauses before a closed door. That was Mom's studio. Dad keeps it locked. Sophia's grip tightens. Does your dad still cry? Marcus blinks, his composure cracking. Sometimes. At night. He thinks I can't hear. Elena cries too, Sophia whispers. In the shower. The children's eyes meet, and something unspoken passes between them, recognition, maybe, or relief at finding someone else who understands. Your room is here, Marcus says to Sophia, opening a door to reveal a space 3 times the size of their old apartment. Princess bed, wall of books, toys still in packaging. This is all mine. Sophia's voice is small. Dad said you might like purple. We can change it if. It's perfect. But Sophia doesn't move toward the beautiful room. Can Elena stay with me tonight? Of course, Elena says immediately, looking to Alexander for confirmation. He nods. Whatever you need. That night, after Sophia finally falls asleep in the enormous bed, Elena sits in the window seat overlooking the garden. Sophia stirs, her voice thick with tears. Aunt Elena. Is Mommy in heaven angry that we're here? Elena crosses to the bed, gathering her niece close. Oh, sweetheart. No. Never. But we have all this stuff and she's gone and it's so big and I miss her and I don't know if I'm allowed to like it here. You're allowed to feel everything, Elena whispers. Sad and grateful and confused and angry all at once. That's what grief is. Does it stop hurting? Elena thinks of Camila, of all the years they lost to pride and distance. No. But it changes. And you learn to carry it. Sophia's breathing eventually evens into sleep, but Elena stays awake, watching the moon rise over a life that feels nothing like her own. The first week establishes rhythms that feel choreographed rather than lived. Breakfast at 7 because it looks right for when the social worker visits. Alexander leaves at 7:15 precisely, briefcase in hand, his goodbye to Marcus perfunctory. Elena retreats to the home office Alexander set up, complete with dual monitors and event planning software she mentioned once in passing. The children circle each other like diplomats at a tense summit. Sophia plays quietly with her new toys. Marcus reads in the library. They're polite when they intersect, careful not to touch each other's grief. How was school? Elena asks Marcus on Wednesday. Fine. Just fine. My teacher asked if you were my new mom. His voice is flat, clinical. I said no. That was the right answer. She said I was lucky to have a second chance at a family. Marcus sets down his fork with precision. I said families don't come in chances. You get one and then it's over. Elena's throat tightens. Marcus. May I be excused? I have homework. She nods, watching him disappear with his shoulders too straight for a 9-year-old. Thursday night changes everything. Elena wakes at 2 a.m. to crying, desperate, broken sobs that pull her from sleep. She finds Marcus in the reading nook, knees pulled to chest, tears streaming down his face. "Hey," she says softly, sitting beside him. "Bad dream?" "She was alive and then she wasn't and I forgot and I was happy and then I remembered and," the words tumble out between gasps. "Come here." Elena pulls him close, and Marcus collapses against her like a puppet with cut strings. "I forgot what her voice sounds like," he whispers. "Dad has videos but it's not the same and I'm forgetting and I'm so tired of being sad but I can't stop and I don't know how to." "Breathe," Elena says. "Just breathe with me." They sit together as Marcus cries himself out, his grief raw and real and nothing like the composed child who gives polite tours. Eventually he falls asleep against her shoulder, and Elena doesn't dare move. That's how Alexander finds them in the morning, his son curled in Elena's arms in the window seat, both of them bathed in dawn light. Something in his expression shifts. Softens. Before Elena can speak, he turns and walks away, but not before she sees the tears on his face. Alexander doesn't mention finding them. He leaves for work at 7:15 as always, his goodbye to Marcus unchanged. But that evening, after the children are in bed, he appears at Elena's office door. "Do you have a minute?" They end up in the library, whiskey glasses neither of them touches between them. Alexander sits across from her, his usual composure fracturing around the edges. "Thank you," he says finally. "For last night. I heard him crying but I didn't know what to," he stops, dragging a hand through his hair. "I never know what to do anymore." "You're doing everything you can." "Am I?" "Because some days it feels like I'm watching him drown and I've forgotten how to swim." The words come faster now, 2 years of grief spilling out. "Victoria died in a car accident." "Instantly," they said. "Like that makes it better." "Marcus was at school. I had to tell him when I picked him up. He asked if he could still have his playdate that afternoon. Just asked like nothing happened. It took 3 days for him to cry." Elena's hand finds his before she can think better of it. "Everyone grieves differently. He was 7. 7 years old and he had to learn that people you love just disappear." Alexander's voice breaks. "I promised Victoria I'd protect him from everything. I failed the day she died. You didn't fail. You survived. You're still here, still fighting for him. Some days that doesn't feel like enough." He finally meets her eyes. "How do you do it? How do you show up for Sophia when you're drowning too?" The question unlocks something in Elena. "I don't know if I am showing up. Camila and I didn't speak for 3 years before she died. 3 years because I was too proud, too focused on my career, too convinced I had time." Tears blur her vision. "I don't know Sophia's favorite color or what songs make her laugh or if she likes her eggs scrambled or fried. I'm her aunt and I'm a stranger and every day I see Camila in her face and remember everything I lost by being too stubborn to forgive." "Forgive what? It doesn't even matter anymore." "Some argument about her choices, my judgment. I thought I was protecting her by keeping distance. I was just being a coward." Elena wipes her eyes. "So no, I don't know if I'm showing up right. But I'm here. That has to count for something. It counts for everything." Alexander's thumb brushes across her knuckles, and neither of them pulls away. "You gave up your life for her. You did the same for Marcus. Did I? Or did I just build him a beautiful cage and call it love?" They talk until 2 a.m., sharing stories about Victoria and Camila, about grief that ambushes you in grocery stores and the weight of promises made to the dying. When Elena finally says goodnight, Alexander catches her hand at the door. "This arrangement," he says quietly. "It's becoming harder to remember it's temporary." Elena feels it too, the dangerous shift from transaction to something real. "We probably shouldn't." "I know." But he doesn't let go of her hand. "Good night, Elena." She lies awake for hours, feeling the phantom warmth of his touch and wondering when exactly this stopped being pretend. Mrs. Patricia Winters arrives unannounced on Tuesday morning, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun, her eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Elena's heart hammers as she opens the door, very aware this woman holds Sophia's future in her hands. Ms. Brooks. Or should I say Mrs. King? The title carries skepticism. Surprise home visits are standard procedure. I'm sure you understand. Of course. Please, come in. Mrs. Winters's gaze sweeps the foyer, cataloging everything. Quite an upgrade from your previous living situation. My husband has been very generous. Your husband of, she checks her tablet, 11 days. Quite a whirlwind romance. Elena forces her voice steady. When you know, you know. Indeed. Mrs. Winters pulls out a notebook. I'd like to speak with Sophia. Alone. The next 20 minutes are torture. Elena paces the kitchen while Marcus watches from the breakfast bar, his expression unreadable. When Mrs. Winters emerges with Sophia, the little girl's face reveals nothing. Now Marcus, if you don't mind. Marcus straightens his shoulders and follows Mrs. Winters to the library. Sophia climbs onto Elena's lap, whispering, "Did I do okay?" "You did perfect, sweetheart." She asked if Uncle Alexander was nice. "I said he taught us to make pancakes last Sunday and he doesn't get mad when I spill juice." Sophia plays with Elena's ring. Was that right? Elena's throat tightens. That was exactly right. When Marcus emerges, he heads straight for Elena. "I told her you know the best stories for when you're sad. And that you stayed with me when I had a nightmare. Was that?" "You were perfect," Elena assures him, pulling him into a one-armed hug that he accepts without the usual hesitation. Mrs. Winters observes the moment with narrowed eyes. "I'd like to see Sophia's room." The inspection continues for another hour. Mrs. Winters examines bedrooms, asks pointed questions about their relationship timeline, watches how the children interact with Elena. Every question feels like a test Elena isn't sure she's passing. Finally, standing in the foyer, Mrs. Winters closes her tablet. "I'll include my observations in my report to the judge." "And those observations are?" Elena can't help asking. "That this is either the most convenient arrangement I've seen in 20 years of social work," Mrs. Winters pauses, her expression softening almost imperceptibly, "or something that might actually work. Time will tell which." As the door closes behind her, Elena leans against it, her legs suddenly weak. Marcus and Sophia appear on either side of her. "Did we pass?" Sophia whispers. "I think so," Elena says, praying she's right. The call comes at 6 a.m. Elena wakes to Alexander's tense voice in the hallway, catching fragments: hostile takeover, board meeting, San Francisco by noon. At breakfast, his jaw is tight. "I have to leave. Today. There's a situation with the company." "How long?" Elena asks. 3 days minimum. Maybe longer. He looks at Marcus, whose face has gone carefully blank. "I'm sorry, buddy. I know I promised." "It's fine." Marcus's voice is robotic. "You have to work. But it's not fine." Elena sees it in how Marcus won't meet his father's eyes, in how his shoulders curve inward. After Alexander leaves, Marcus retreats to his room. Sophia hovers outside his door. "Should we check on him?" she asks Elena. They find Marcus sitting on his bed, staring at nothing. "My mom was on her way to a business meeting when she died," he says flatly. "Dad always has business meetings." Elena sits beside him. "He's coming back." "That's what Mom said too." The words hit like a fist. Elena pulls out her phone, texting Alexander, "Marcus needs to hear your voice. Call when you land." The call comes 2 hours later. Elena puts it on speaker. "Hey buddy, Alexander says, and Elena hears the exhaustion. I know this is scary. I'm not scared. Marcus's voice cracks. I'm fine. I'm not fine, Alexander admits. I'm terrified. This company falling apart, being away from you, wondering if I'm making the same mistakes that, he stops, breathing hard. I'm going to call you every night. Morning too. And if you need me before that, Elena has my direct line. Okay, Marcus whispers. I love you. More than any company, any meeting, anything. That night, Alexander's board schedules an emergency video call. Elena manages the household, helps Sophia with homework, sits with Marcus through dinner. When Alexander calls at 9 p.m., his face fills her laptop screen, tie loosened, circles under his eyes. The board wants my perspective on reputation management, he says. But I don't know. Tell them the truth, Elena interrupts. That King Ventures isn't just about profit margins. It's about building something that lasts. She leans forward. What do you tell Marcus about why you work so hard? That I'm building his future. Then tell them that. Remind them they're not just protecting stock prices, they're protecting people's futures. Alexander stares at her. You're brilliant. The next morning, he texts, they loved it. Coming home tonight instead of Thursday. When he walks through the door at 11 p.m., exhausted and rumpled, Elena is waiting in the foyer. Without thinking, she crosses to him. Without hesitating, he pulls her close, pressing his forehead to hers. Thank you, he whispers like a prayer. His lips brush her forehead, gentle and reverent, and Elena feels the last pretense of arrangement crumble. This isn't convenience anymore. They both know it. Judge Morrison's courtroom is all dark wood and echoing silence. Elena sits at the plaintiff's table in a navy suit, very aware of Mrs. Winters in the gallery taking notes, of Sophia waiting in the children's room, of Alexander sitting 3 rows back where spouses are allowed to observe. Ms. Brooks, Judge Morrison begins, reviewing documents, you're seeking permanent guardianship of your niece, Sophia Ramirez, age 7. I've reviewed Mrs. Winters's report. It's interesting. Elena's pulse hammers. Your Honor. You married Mr. Alexander King 11 days before filing this petition. You moved into his residence immediately. Your previous housing was deemed unsuitable, and you had minimal relationship with the child prior to your sister's death. The judge's eyes are sharp. This court has seen many arrangements of convenience. Help me understand why this isn't one of them. The lie she rehearsed dies on Elena's tongue. She glances back at Alexander, who nods almost imperceptibly. It started as one, Elena admits, and the courtroom stills. I was desperate. I had 48 hours to prove I could provide stability, and I had nothing. Alexander overheard my situation and offered a solution that sounded insane, a marriage of convenience to satisfy your requirements. Mrs. Winters's pen moves faster. Judge Morrison's expression doesn't change. But somewhere between that first breakfast where we were strangers eating in careful silence, and Marcus's nightmare when I held him while he cried about forgetting his mother's voice, it became real. Elena's voice strengthens. Somewhere between Sophia asking if her mom in heaven was angry at her for living in a beautiful house, and Alexander admitting he didn't know how to save his drowning son, we became a family. Not a perfect one. Not a traditional one. But real. Real how, the judge presses. We grieve together. We show up for each other when it's hard. Marcus tells Sophia stories about his mom, and Sophia shares memories of mine. Alexander and I stay up until 2 a.m. talking about our failures and our fears. He asked me for help during a business crisis not because I'm his wife on paper, but because he trusts me. I trust him with Sophia's broken heart. Elena's eyes find Alexander's, and she sees tears streaming down his face. I can't promise perfection, Your Honor. I can't promise Sophia won't still cry for her mother or that Marcus won't have nightmares or that Alexander and I figured out love in any conventional way. But I can promise Sophia a home where she's cherished, where grief is honored, where family means showing up even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy. Judge Morrison is quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Winters. Your recommendation. Guardianship granted, Your Honor. This family is unconventional, but it's functioning. The children are thriving. And Ms. Brooks, Mrs. King, has demonstrated remarkable commitment. The gavel falls. Permanent guardianship granted. Court dismissed. Elena's legs nearly give out. Alexander is there instantly, catching her, pulling her close. You told the truth, he whispers. I couldn't lie. Not about this. She looks up at him. Not about us. Outside the courthouse, Sophia and Marcus race ahead, laughing about something only they understand. Alexander catches Elena's hand, and this time there's no pretense of necessity. The 6 months aren't up, he says quietly. But I'd like to renegotiate our terms. What did you have in mind? He pulls her close, very aware of the children watching with delighted grins. Forever. I'm proposing forever. Real forever, not contract forever. That's a terrible business decision, Elena says, but she's smiling through tears. The best ones usually are. On the courthouse steps, surrounded by the family they built from desperation and grief, Elena Brooks kisses her husband for real, not for judges or social workers or legal requirements, but because she chooses him. Because somewhere between broken plates and broken hearts, between 48-hour deadlines and 2 a.m. confessions, the impossible became inevitable. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings rise from the ashes of impossible endings. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to accept help from a stranger, you find out they were never really a stranger at all, just someone whose brokenness fit perfectly with your own.